Good morning. If I started from scratch today, here are the 3 lenses setups that I would go for the cheap, mid, and high-end budget. Make sure you watch until the end because I'll explain exactly why and help you avoid the biggest mistake, honestly, spending thousands of dollars and never using the gear. So please, let's get started. My favorite lens when it comes to colors and just fun, but it's manual. No, I want to hear from you. If you could pick only one lens for the rest of the year, which one would it be? Let me know in the comments. Look, we've got a really hard task at hand, so let's get started. My name is Pierre Lambert. I'm a travel photographer and the creator of 30 Days to Great Photos, a step-by-step program that has helped thousands of photographers see, shoot, and edit with confidence so they get photos that they're proud to share. If you are interested to join the next session, there's a link in the description. And on this YouTube channel, I'm sharing photography tutorials and adventures, so make sure you subscribe if you want to get the next free videos. Join the family. The more, the merrier. Now let's start with the cheap budget. If you're on a really tight budget, it's actually fairly simple, and I'm gonna give you those lenses for APS-C and for full frame. So my setup is usually like this. When I think about it, if I go on any shoot, any pro shoot, I'm thinking wide, mid, tight. Okay, so the goal is really to capture and create a story that's strong, and for that I need those 3 different fields of view, right? So my recommendation for really cheap lenses on the wide would be to go for Viltrox AF 20mm Air full frame for Sony. It's about $176, and on APS-C I would take the Viltrox 9mm f1.7, and it's around the same price also. So why am I not going wider, you may be asking, on the full frame? Simply because below 20mm, in my opinion, it gets expensive very quickly unless you go to manual lenses. Now, I want to hear about you. Would you be ready to trade off the price for a manual lens? But in this day and age, in my opinion, we should be using those lenses that have autofocus as much as possible, because autofocus and the detection and all that is really good nowadays. So why not? Why are the wide lenses important for me? Because they're establishing shots. They kind of create the scene where you are. They're showing that scene. They're helping for photography of landscape, nightscape, also astrophotography to get the stars. And I like them to also have very immersive photos. So I tend to always include a wide one in my gear setup. Now the mid-range is really for documenting every day. It's not too intrusive, not too close, and it's not too wide either that it's hard to work with. It's basically that sweet spot, especially for travel, for street, for portraits, for lifestyle, for every day. And then the tighter ones will be for specific portraits, details, and shots at night or in cities where I really need to reach while still being discreet. That mid-range zoom is kind of the essential. If you had to keep just one of those 3, this is the one I would keep. Now, that zoom is costing a little more money. What I would recommend going for is maybe a Tamron 28 to 75mm on full frame. You can look for it about $800 USD new and under $650 used. So it's a f2.8 lens. It works great. It's not that big. Now you're still forking a ton of money, I would say. Other option would be to try to get a 50mm, for example, f1.8 or f2, and that will cost you a lot less money, but you won't have as much of a range. So if you're really cheap on that cheap end, go for that prime 50mm. In my opinion, that will be good. You have a 20, you have a 50, you're fine. And on the APS-C side, I would go for that 35mm f1.7, again from Viltrox, under $190. So that would keep it really cheap. Or if you really want to zoom, you can also go for the 18 to 50 f2.8 for APS-C at around $650 new. But you may be able to grab it for cheaper on the used market. So here you really have to make a choice. Do you want to spend $400 more for that zoom that's going to cover that mid-range, or do you want to stay around that 50mm equivalent field of view for everything? Next, we're going tight. Tight prime for me is my trusted 85mm f1.8. I absolutely love it. No need to get a 1.4. No need to bother around. This is a great lens. You can get it for $300 used on the market, and you can get also a newer version from Viltrox for a little more. But honestly, this is the lens I'm gonna be using for tight shots, for portraits, for nighttime. I've literally spent weeks in Japan with just that. I didn't take a 70-200. That lens that fits in the small budget is incredible, and I've taken photos that I love. On APS-C, I would say go for the Viltrox 56mm f1.7. Okay, again, you're about $180. So that means that for less than $600 on APS-C, you could have 3 primes that cover everything, which is 9mm, around 35mm, and 56mm, which in equivalent is about 14mm, 50mm, and something like 85mm. To me, this is a great setup. It's very cheap. If you add that zoom lens, now we're getting closer to $1,000 for that entire setup. Now, what do we do if we have a little more than $1,000 for that mid-range budget for lenses? Well, let's get into it. So what do you think so far? Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with those setups, or would you do something completely different? Now, mid-range budget, I will say it's gonna be under $2,000, or we're gonna try to keep it under that. We're gonna have a wide lens again. I'm recommending that Sony 16mm f1.8 for about $800 USD. Really small lens. This is a 20mm version, and the 16 is even smaller than that. So I really recommend it. It's no brainer, but it's not cheap. So you really gotta make sure that you're gonna be using those wide angles. Like I said, you need to have worked on your skills a lot to get great shots with a wide angle. If you want to do that, join the 30-day adventure to great photos. We'll work on it together, or grab my free photography cheat sheets with tips and settings that I use every day in the description. For APS-C, I think I'm gonna recommend again that Viltrox 9mm. I think it's a no-brainer. Yeah, you could go for 15mm, but that's a little too tight in my opinion. That 9mm is gonna be a sweet spot. Is it a perfect lens? No, but at that price, and in that mid-range budget where you'll be spending more on the zooms, just throw it in your bag and forget about it. Or I would say, don't forget about it, start using it. Now the mid-range, so I'm gonna go for zooms here. Sony 24-50mm f2.8, around $1,100 or so. It's just an incredible lens. It is small, it is compact, it doesn't take much space. It's one of my favorite, and sadly I actually don't have it. I've shot with it a lot, but I never actually got it for any of my setups yet, because I have the 24-70 GM2, so I felt kind of stupid having that one plus you know. So, but I recommend it. If I started from scratch, I would get that one and forget about the 24-70 because they're much bigger. So again, however small your setup can be, that means you're going to be more likely to take it with you every day and take more photos. Love it, have fun, and the likelihood that you take photos that you love when you take more photos is also higher. On APS-C, I recommend the Sigma 17-40mm f1.8. Very sharp lens, beautiful, extremely versatile, and that really covers well that about 27-75mm range, equivalent in full frame for the APS-C, and f1.8 really gives you that depth of field that you want without needing a prime lens in that range. Last in that mid-range budget, we're gonna have the tight one. Honestly, I'm gonna recommend the 85-1.8 again. I literally have it in extremely expensive setups also, and I still use it. So 85-1.8 from Sony, beautiful lens. And if you're watching and you're not Sony, there's an equivalent for every camera brand. It's just, we're talking focal length and aperture basically. Now, if you wanted to spend $600 more to go for a zoom, like the Tamron 70-180 f2.8, you could, because you can find it used about $900 USD. But I will say the prime feel at 85 is S2.8 is going to be different, but that 70-100 or 70-180 will allow you to reach further, get different kind of shot, and almost play a little bit with animals or sports or things that 85mm is going to show forward of. So depending on your mid-range budget here, I would go either for that Sony or I would go for that Tamron 70-180. On the APS-C side, I would stay with that 56 f1.7 and just call it a day. Really, there are zooms that can help reach further in that mid-range, but if I don't necessarily need it, I will stay on the prime realm. Now, you know that Tamron setup could also work on an APS-C body. It would just be a little tighter, which could work at your advantage, so that 180 or let's say 200 would almost be a 300 millimeter on the APS-C Sony body. So to me, feel free to grab that full frame lens and throw it on APS-C camera. Not an issue at all, especially in that range. Last, I will say the f1.4 you could go for on the 85, but honestly, I don't think it's worth it. It doesn't make a drastic difference between 1.8 and 1.4 when you're at 85 millimeter. Just saying it, it's so much heavier and bigger, the 85 1.4, that, you know, 85 1.8, I love it. It's just so small. Now, all the photos you've been seeing are not AI. They've been taken by me. You can actually see some behind the scenes in other videos, and they've been edited with my Lightroom presets. Feel free to grab them with the link in the description. Now, let's talk big budget, big lenses. So again, on the wide end, I'm gonna suggest the almighty Trinity. So we could go 16-35 f2.8 GM2, really small and really versatile lens. I could also consider just doing the 16mm f1.8 that I suggested earlier. Why? Because to me, I don't always need 16-35, but 16 I really need it. It's really helpful. I have a 14mm. The problem, you can't fit lens filters on it, so 16mm prime would be perfect if I didn't want the 16-35. If I'm not really shooting much in that wide range, then 16mm in my bag for specific shots, architecture, immersive shot, action and stuff. And then you'll see in the mid-range, I will cover my needs, okay? So in the mid-range, what am I gonna get? Well, that 24-70mm lens, that is the GM2 from Sony. It is light, it is fairly compact, and honestly, it hasn't let me down. It's extremely fast, responsive with the autofocus, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, I will say, why would I get the Sony lenses maybe over third parties in that range, in that price range? I will get the Sony ones. Why? Because I may be shooting on the A1 body, A9 body, or A7 V, and if you don't know, the 30 frames per second are not available with third-party lenses all the time, or actually never. So you need the Sony bodies if you want the 30 frames or 120 frames per second burst modes. Otherwise, you're stuck around 10 or 15 depending on the lenses. In the mid-range, there's two options for me. Going the prime route, if I took a 16-35, I'm gonna take a Sony 35 or 50mm f1.4 prime. And if I got the prime 16mm f1.8, that probably means I'm gonna be on the zoom in the mid-range. That means I'm gonna go for that 24-70 f2.8, okay? Now, you may have guessed it, for tight shots, I'm gonna go 70-100 GM2 f2.8. Really lightweight lens that allows to create beautiful photos with lots of compression, isolate your subject, reach further, be a little discreet if you're standing back, and wow, the autofocus is extremely fast. Or if I'm going crazy, I'm getting, and I want something very heavy, I get that 50-150 f2 that is new. I've shot with it. It's just an incredible lens. It just feels that you have a prime lens from 50-150. And on the field, wow, it was great. But after a while, it was getting a little heavy on my hands, and ouch. So, but now we're talking about, you know, it's a lot of money. I mean, look at the screen. It adds up very, very quickly. You may be asking, what about a prime 85 or 135? I may not include it in that 3-lens setup on the high end, especially if I have a 50-150 or 70-100. But if I wanted to have a high-end budget that is very light, I would actually swap the 16-35 and the 24-70 for probably the 24-50 and that 16-25, and then take the 85mm 1.8 with me, or a 100mm macro, which is a little bigger but could serve a different purpose also, or 70-100 f4. I'm adding too many options, but here's my final setup on the high-end budget. Remember, if you have too many lenses, you'll never be able to choose which one to take you on the next shoot. And it's about having the right tool that stays out of your way so you can focus on the emotion of the shot. If you're still feeling a little bit lost with your settings and you haven't done so yet, grab my free photography cheat sheet for everyday settings that is in the description, and check out this video to learn how to take sharp photos no matter what, and watch this one for my recommended camera bodies. Now remember, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I'll see you in the next one. That's the most important.